my father again.
Did he struggle with the idea of coming out publicly? Was that something that you talked about at all?
But he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world. And he had a lot of lady fans.
Are you in a good place now in your life?
Depends on when you ask me whether or not it's a good place.
Are you happy?
It depends. It also depends on when you ask. No, not particularly.
Hey there, ever heard the buzz about Hollywood and its secrets? Well, hold on to your hats because we're diving deep into a jaw-dropping rumor that's been making the rounds. You see, there's this big mystery surrounding the late Luther Vandross, the legendary singer. Now, we all know Luther for his incredible voice and timeless hits. But did you know there might be something hidden about his passing? Here's the kicker. Word on the street suggests that Luther Vandross might have taken a big secret with him to the grave. Yep, rumor has it there's more to his death than meets the eye. And here's where it gets juicy. More people are whispering about this being because of a terrible secret.
My friend Luther was
In this video, we're going to uncover what really happened to Luther Vandross. We'll separate fact from fiction and delve into the speculation surrounding his untimely death. So, grab some popcorn and get ready, because this Hollywood mystery is about to get real interesting. Luther Vandross Jr. was born in New York City in 1951. He grew up in Manhattan, where his dad was a singer and his mom worked as a nurse. Luther learned to play the piano by himself when he was just a little kid. But when Luther was 8, his dad passed away because of diabetes. In 2003, Luther made a song called "Dance with My Father" as a tribute to his dad. He wrote it because he remembered all the fun times they had together at home.
To dance with my father again.
Luther and his family moved to the Bronx when he was 9. His sisters, Pat and Ann, used to take him to concerts to see famous singers like Dionne Warwick and Aretha Franklin. He finished high school in the Bronx in 1969. After that, he went to college for a little bit, but decided to leave and focus on his music career. While in high school, Vandross founded the first Patti LaBelle fan club, of which he was president. He also performed in a group, Shades of Jade, that once played at the Apollo Theater.
He loved his family, but he was obsessed. Music was his top priority.
He saw music as his first love, but also his ticket out of the Lower East Side.
During his early years in show business, he appeared several times at Apollo's famous amateur night. While he was a member of a theater workshop, Listen My Brother, he was involved in the singles Only Love Can Make a Better World and Listen My Brother. The group performed in front of tens of thousands at the Harlem Cultural Festival in late August 1969. Directly afterward, he appeared with the group in the pilot episode and other episodes of the first season of Sesame Street during 1969-1970. Now, Vandross had a voice smoother than silk, and he could sing like nobody's business. But before he became a big shot on his own, he was backing up some serious music legends. So get this, in 1972, Vandross added his magic touch to Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway's tunes. That's where it all started. Then, he worked his vocal mojo on Dolores Hall's album, singing his heart out on songs like Who's Gonna Make It Easier for Me and In This Lonely Hour.
The music in the early days was so important to Luther. I think he learned from them.
He loved the richness of sound that he heard in those girl group harmonies when he was growing up.
But here's the kicker. Vandross teamed up with David Bowie, the superstar, to turn his own funky jam into the hit Fascination for Bowie's album. From there, he hit the road with Bowie, belting out tunes as his backup singer, and the list goes on. Vandross lent his smooth vocals to loads of other big shots like Chaka Khan, Diana Ross, and even Ringo Starr. Talk about rubbing shoulders with the stars.
And when he sang it, David was like, yes! Wow, this guy is great.
David had a heart-to-heart with him and essentially said, you're going to be a big star.
Before he became a solo sensation, Vandross was part of a group called Luther in the late 1970s. They dropped a few tracks that got people grooving, but sadly their albums didn't quite hit the big time. Vandross was like, no way I'm taking those albums back, when the record label dropped them. And guess what? Those albums are making a comeback in 2024. But wait, there's more. Vandross wasn't just about singing for the big names. He also rocked the world of commercials, crooning catchy tunes for brands like Mountain Dew and Burger King. Can you imagine hearing his voice selling you burgers and soda? And it didn't stop there. Vandross kept on shining, lending his golden voice to disco hits and even jazzing up Quincy Jones's tunes. He was everywhere, spreading his musical magic far and wide.
Luther was the jingle king of New York, and jingles is where he was making his bread.
It was those commercials that began his, being able to have the money to do the things he wanted to do with his music.
Vandross made his career breakthrough as a featured singer with the vaunted pop dance act Change, a studio concept created by French-Italian businessman Jacques-Fred Petrus. Their 1980 hits, The Glow of Love by Romani, Malavasi, and Garfield, and Searching by Malavasi, featured Vandross as the lead singer. In a 2001 interview with Vibe, Vandross said, "The Glow of Love was the most beautiful song I've ever sung in my life." Both songs were from Change's debut album, The Glow of Love. Vandross was originally intended to perform on their second and highly successful album, Miracles, in 1981, but declined the offer as Petrus didn't pay enough money. Vandross's decision led to a recording contract with Epic Records that same year, but he also provided background vocals on Miracles and on the new Petrus created act, the BBNQ Band, in 1981. During that hectic year, Vandross jump-started his second attempt at a solo career with his debut album, Never Too Much. In addition to the hit title track, it contained a version of the Bacharach and David song, A House Is Not a Home. The song, Never Too Much, written by him, reached #1 on the R&B charts. This period also marked the beginning of songwriting collaboration with bassist Marcus Miller, who played on many of the tracks and would also produce or co-produce a number of tracks for Vandross. The Never Too Much album was arranged by Vandross's high school classmate Nat Adderley Jr., a collaboration that would last through Vandross's career.
I love that song, and everyone loved that song.
It was so successful. It was like all of a sudden, boom, it happened.
Vandross released a series of successful R&B albums during the 1980s and continued his session work with guest vocals on groups like Charm in 1982. Many of his earlier albums made a bigger impact on the R&B charts than on the pop charts. During the 1980s, two of Vandross's singles reached #1 on the Billboard R&B charts, Stop to Love in 1986, and a duet with Gregory Hines, There's Nothing Better Than Love. Vandross was at the helm as producer for Aretha Franklin's gold-certified, award-winning comeback album Jump to It. He also produced the follow-up album, 1983's Get It Right. In 1983, the opportunity to work with his main musical influence, Dionne Warwick, came about with Vandross producing, writing songs, and singing on How Many Times Can We Say Goodbye, her fourth album for Arista Records. The title track duet reached #27 on the Hot 100 chart, the 7 R&B to 4 adult contemporary, while the second single, Got a Date, was a moderate hit, while 45 R&B, while 15 club play. Vandross wrote and produced It's Hard for Me to Say for Diana Ross from her Red Hot Rhythm and Blues album. Ross performed the song as an a cappella tribute to Oprah Winfrey on her final season of The Oprah Winfrey Show. She then proceeded to add it to her successful 2010-12 More Today Than Yesterday, The Greatest Hits Tour. Vandross also recorded a version of this song on his Your Secret Love album in 1996. Vandross first spotted the talent of Jimmy Salvemini, who was 15 at the time, on Star Search. He thought Salvemini had the perfect voice for some of his songs and contacted him. He was managed by his brother, Larry Salvemini. A contract was negotiated with Elektra Records for $250,000, and Vandross agreed to produce the album. He contacted his old friends, Cheryl Lynn, Alpha Anderson of Chick, Phoebe Snow, and Irene Cara, to appear on the record. Jimmy Salvemini's album, Roll It, was released in 1986. When the superstar singer died aged 54 in 2005, he'd sold more than 35 million records, won 8 Grammy Awards, and performed alongside the likes of David Bowie, Ringo Starr, Beyoncé, and Mariah Carey. He left behind 14 studio albums, all of which went either platinum or multi-platinum, and a collection of timeless hits including Never Too Much, Here and Now, and Power of Love. He also left behind what's been called the biggest unkept secret in R&B history, his Luther Vandross was rumored to be gay throughout his career, and his orientation was the subject of frequent media speculation. According to Gene Davis, a television producer who worked with the star, everybody in the business knew that Luther was gay.
My friend Luther was
Nevertheless, it remained something of an open secret until he was posthumously outed by his longtime friend Patti LaBelle 12 years after his death. The singer confirmed the rumors once and for all in an interview on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen in 2017. Did he struggle with the idea of coming out publicly? Was that something you talked about at all? The gay talk show host asked her. LaBelle nodded and replied, "Yeah, we talked about it. It was basically he did not want his mother to be, although she might have known, but he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world." She added, "And he had a lot of lady fans, and he told me that he just didn't want to upset the world. It was hard for him." Reactions to the interview were mixed. It certainly wasn't the revelation of the century, as it simply confirmed what many people already knew.
Basically, he did not want his mother to be, although she might have known, but he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world. And he had a lot of lady fans, and he told me that he just didn't want to upset the world.
The star's mother, Mary Ida Vandross, was not alive to hear it as she'd already passed away in 2008, yet some still felt it wasn't Patti LaBelle's place to break the news. Vandross was born in 1951, long before LGBT+ people were widely accepted, and to be both black and gay was even more radical at the time. One can only imagine the anxiety Luther Vandross must have felt to even fathom the idea of being an out gay black man at the height of his musical career in the 80s, wrote the Griot's Garen Keith Gaynor. Luther was a S symbol, and in the world of R&B, which was also deeply rooted in the African American church and black experience at large, his would have certainly sent shockwaves through the community. Even if he wanted to, there was no historical context for Vandross to feel secure in knowing that he would have still been loved for his talents despite the community's homophobia and deep obsession with toxic masculinity. Unfortunately, we'll never know Vandross's thoughts on the matter, but it may have been something of a comfort for him to know he'd still have his family's support, even after his became public knowledge. He also had other controversies in his life. One notable one was Luther Vandross and Anita Baker's feud. I mean, you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing their smooth tunes. But here's the kicker. Their relationship wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Nope, it was more like a roller coaster ride of egos and clashes, especially when they teamed up for a mega tour. Let's talk about Luther first. This guy was all about perfection. He didn't just sing. He crafted masterpieces with every note. Luther was like the king of attention to detail. Everything had to be just right, from the songs he picked to how the stage looked. He set the bar high, and anyone who worked with him had to reach it. Now, Anita was his polar opposite. She was all about heart and soul. Her voice could make you feel things you didn't even know you could feel. Anita didn't sweat the small stuff like Luther did. She just let her emotions guide her, which sometimes rubbed Luther the wrong way. So, when they teamed up for this tour, people thought it was going to be epic. Two legends on one stage. Here's where it gets juicy. Instead of harmony, there was drama. They fought over everything. What songs to sing, how to sing them, you name it. And with fans and the media hyping them up, the pressure was on. But their feud wasn't just about them. It affected everyone around them. The crew, the schedule, even the fans who came to see them. Backstage was like a battlefield, and even on stage you could feel the tension. But hey, it wasn't all bad. When Luther and Anita put their differences aside, magic happened. Their performances were out of this world, showing just how pro they were. Now, let's switch gears to another Luther had, this time with En Vogue. These ladies were all about modern R&B vibes, the complete opposite of Luther's old-school style. You could say they clashed like oil and water. The tour with En Vogue was like mixing oil and water. Messy. Luther had his way of doing things, while En Vogue had theirs. They fought over everything, from the playlist to when to rehearse. And it wasn't just about music, it was about generations colliding. Luther was old school cool, while En Vogue was the new kid on the block. Their different perspectives led to even more clashes. But amidst the chaos, there were moments of pure magic. When Luther's smooth melodies blended with En Vogue's energetic harmonies, it was like music heaven. Now, let's talk about Luther's personal life. It wasn't all glitz and glam. Luther struggled with some heavy stuff like feeling really lonely and dealing with depression. See, Luther had to keep a big secret, his as mentioned earlier. Back then, being wasn't as accepted as it is now, especially in the spotlight. Luther poured all those feelings into his music. His songs were like windows into his soul, reflecting his pain and isolation. Fans felt that connection, like Luther was singing straight to them. But Luther's struggles didn't stop there. He also battled with his weight and health issues like diabetes and high blood pressure. His weight went up and down, and the media wouldn't let him forget it. They were always poking and prodding, which only made things harder for him. Despite all his personal battles, Luther kept singing his heart out. Even when he was feeling low, he'd step on stage and give it his all. That's what made him a true pro, never letting his troubles get in the way of his music. Luther's story is a reminder that even the biggest stars have their ups and downs. But through it all, Luther stayed true to himself and his music, and that's what makes him a legend.